I think Sherlock Holmes is a bit of an annoying character. I hadn't expected that A Study in Scarlet would entertain me as much as it did. I thought it was pretty good, actually. Hi, I'm Annie and welcome to my channel. And it is February. This means it is Filmtastic February. This is a reading event that I am hosting, and that is all about film and film-related fiction and non-fiction. Announcement video in the description box below. But it is also Holmes is where the heart is. And this is a reading event that involves a lot of reading of Sherlock Holmes stories by Arthur Conan Doyle or Sherlock Holmes pastiches or more modern versions of Sherlock Holmes. As a lot of Sherlock Holmes, I think most Sherlock Holmes stories that are written by Arthur Conan Doyle have been adapted to films and TV episodes. Probably unknowingly, people that participate in Holmes is where the heart is are also participating in my reading event Filmtastic February. So I thought I would do the reverse by reading for my Filmtastic February A Study in Scarlet, the first Sherlock Holmes short story by Arthur Conan Doyle. And I also watched the 1933 film and the 1968 TV adaptation of A Study in Scarlet. The 1933 film is with Reginald Owen as Sherlock Holmes and Warburton Gamble as Dr. Watson. And the 1968 version has the absolutely legendary Peter Cushing as Sherlock Holmes and Nigel Stock as Dr. Watson. But first, this novella. As A Study in Scarlet is the first Sherlock Holmes story, we see how Sherlock Holmes and Watson meet. And Sherlock Holmes develops soon to be, or he appears to be, a very arrogant know-it-all. How annoying. And I suspect Watson also finds this annoying, but he needs a place to live. So they share a flat. And that's all okay, but soon he sees that Sherlock Holmes has an unusual occupation. He is a private detective, and not your regular private detective. He is a super sleuth, detecting by scientific experiments and scientific deductions, which was all new in the time Arthur Conan Doyle wrote about it. And Watson notices his arrogance, but he also says that he thinks Holmes is a bit of a sensitive and doesn't always want to talk about his job. So he is a bit of a cunning fox. He exploits this vulnerable spot of Sherlock Holmes. So he flatters Sherlock Holmes and thus is extracting information about the cases Sherlock Holmes is investigating. So what is the story A Study in Scarlet all about? It starts off with a man being murdered, lying murdered in an abandoned house. And Watson and Sherlock Holmes and Watson are investigating the case. Well, Sherlock Holmes does the investigating and Watson asks the questions, which is excellent for me. The story is separated in two parts, which seemingly have nothing to do with each other, but don't worry, it all comes together in the end. I like the fact that Arthur Conan Doyle credits his sources for inspiration. He lets Watson make the comparisons to Watson to Edgar Allan Poe's Dupin and the work of Gaboureau. And I like it very much. Of course, Sherlock Holmes reacts in a very conceited and arrogant way, but that's the way Sherlock Holmes' character works. And there is also something mentioned about his drug use. Oh, well, it's not literally mentioned about his drug use, but it is hinted at that Sherlock Holmes has some kind of gaze in his eyes that could indicate drug use, but it's not literally says this man uses drugs. So maybe that's why I don't mind the arrogance as much later on in the story as in the beginning, because it feels like it is not entirely his own fault. It is more something, he is probably mentally ill or something, which he uses for his occupation. And his drug use maybe makes him more alert or helps him to solve the case as well. Not that I promote drug use, not at all. I must seriously say that. And the fact that Watson concludes that Holmes is very, very conceited, it makes me feel like I have an ally, in my opinion, about Sherlock Holmes. So that makes it less annoying as well. The second part of the story is all about Mormons. And in the first two chapters of this second part, I think, well, what do these Mormons have to do with the story? What do I care about these Mormons? I don't know. Why are they there? I want Sherlock Holmes. I never thought I would say that, but I want this annoying Sherlock Holmes and Watson investigating stuff. Don't get me wrong, Mormons are probably nice enough people. I don't know any Mormons. Oh no! According to Arthur Conan Doyle, Mormons are not nice people. Doyle makes Mormons out to be the evil kind of people, the bad guys. But this part, as it goes further and further, the development of this part of the story, there is more and more suspense added. And I thought this was absolutely excellent and brilliantly done. And as I said, in the end, all comes together. All in all, I think this is a pretty good story. Now for the 1933 film with Reginald Owen as Sherlock Holmes and Warburton Gamble as Dr. Watson. Sorry, I found this a bit of a boring film. It's not that the fact that they changed a lot of the original story. They changed just about everything except Sherlock Holmes and Watson. Those are, and some phrases are used in this film as well. But yeah, the acting wasn't that great. The pacing was very, very slow, and probably the script, the directing and the editing had something to do with it. Even there is a scene where a man almost gets run over by a car. This could have been really a suspenseful moment in the film, but even that is boring to watch. Just look at it.
I'm missing him. Save me!
I found the plot though really acceptable. This was really okay, but Reginald Owen was, in my opinion, a bit unconvincing as Sherlock Holmes. I didn't think I'd long for the arrogance of the Sherlock Holmes in the novel as much as I did in this film. And I must admit, Warburton Gamble isn't very memorable in this his role as Watson either. But there is one scene that makes it all worthwhile watching all of the boring bits in this film, and that is a scene between Wong and June Clyde. They have this scene together, and this is just the most excellent scene in this film. In this, I will show it in a minute. In this scene, Mrs. Pike, played by Wong, has lured Eileen Forrester, played by June Clyde, into a trap. But Eileen doesn't know it yet.
Good night, my dear. My bedroom is just across the corridor. If you should want me for anything, don't hesitate to call me.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
No. Nothing like that happens in this film. It was a film from 1933, remember? You couldn't have that. And it wasn't an element in the story. It was just this fun, absolutely fun one scene. But it must have been entertaining, or it must have been fun to mislead the board of censorship. Yes, Mrs. Pike is the baddie in this film, as were most of the LGBTQ representations in films during that time. But for me personally, I think this is better than to be ignored altogether, especially when there are no positive LGBTQ parts, roles available. Throughout the film, Wong plays Mrs. Pike as a cool and calculating fish. This is really the only scene where she shows some emotion. So this was absolutely worth every boring bit in this film, I thought. So this was highly entertaining. Finally, I watched the TV episode from 1968 with Peter Cushing as Sherlock Holmes and Nigel Stock as Dr. Watson. You'd be happy to hear that this adaptation is very faithful to the original of A Study in Scarlet. Of course, there are scenes cut out in this film because it's only 45 or so minutes long, but it doesn't really matter. The principle of the story remains intact, and it holds up pretty well. The acting is very decent, not brilliant. In the book, Sherlock Holmes smokes cigars, but in the film, in this TV adaptation, he smokes a pipe, which is more logical, I think, as pipe smoking is more associated with intellectuals. And as Sherlock Holmes is a walking brain, a pipe suits him more than the odd cigar. I think this was a decent adaptation. Not the best portrayal of Sherlock Holmes, I must admit, but this was really very faithful to the original story, so I enjoyed it. The pace wasn't very fast, but it was 1968 TV, and I have noticed that TV episodes during the time or TV films were of a slower pace than films in the cinema were. I think the first, one of the first at least, TV series that resembled a cinema film that was the other Super Sleuth by Agatha Christie, Poirot, with David Suchet, who plays Poirot. And that series, the creators of that series really made it in mind keeping a cinema going audience. So from that time on, TV adaptations and TV series were more approached with a cinema going audience in mind. But that aside, I enjoyed myself very much with this Sherlock Holmes project of A Study in Scarlet. So now I'm wondering, what do you think of all of this? Are you participating in Holmes's Where the Heart Is? Or are you participating in any other reading events or Filmtastic February? I'd love to hear from you. And who are your favorite Sherlock Holmes representations, adaptations? I don't know the English word. You know what I mean. As always, thanks for watching.